I kind of chuckled. I said, well, then the Army did its job. And then he drew in another breath of smoke and he blew it out. And then he said, could you?
So when Sonny said, could you, what did he mean by that?
I think he was generally curious about my military background. Anybody that goes in the military, your first priority is to be a soldier and defend the country.
Did that subject matter ever come up again in the future?
Not that I recall.
So tell me how it was like starting to work with Sonny.
Well, I gave my 2 weeks notice at the hotel, and I show up at this place. It's off Reisterstown Road, down like an alleyway, and it was a bad part of town. The only way to identify the building was by the door and the buzzer, because there was no names, no nothing. You couldn't tell what it was unless you knew where you were going. It was very secure, so I looked, I ring the buzzer, and I see an older woman behind the desk, and she's looking, and I see her yelling to somebody, and then I see Sonny come into view, and I hear the door buzz, and I walked in. So the secretary, Janice, she's like, who are you? She starts, who are you? What are you doing? Are you related to somebody? Sonny's like, sit down, dude. He kind of brushed me in the back, and I met his partner, Ira. And Ira, shook my hand and on and said, welcome, aboard. And Sonny's like, all right, all the guys are in the back waiting. So I go in the back and all these, ragtag looking bunch of guys back there. He says, this is Paul. He's a new guy. He's going to work with each and every one of you. Some of you for a month, some of you for a few weeks. Show him everything you know. He's the fill-in guy, go on vacation, sick. You need to show him everything. So, and he's going to be part of the crew. So the first guy I ran with, they called him Buttman Dave, because he ran the cigarette route. He was important because there was 110 stops we had, cigarette stops. About 50 of them we had poker machines and, other machines, but we had other spots where we just had cigarette machines. So I ran with him for about a month. So the idea was that they had to make sure they knew who I was. So he introduced me for a month with, I worked around with him, learned the cigarette trade, how to load machines, how to order, how to do things like that. So it was Buttman Dave, and then it was Dave B, the daytime mechanic, and he was the go-to guy. He knew everything. He was like a savant with equipment and machines and everything. And he really pulled me under his wing, and for about a month he showed me how to fix things. But these machines weren't that difficult to work on, at least the poker machines and all, because it pretty much was a monitor, a board, a power supply, bill acceptor, and they're in a cabinet. That was pretty much the extent of it. And then I ran with a night mechanic, and that guy was a character. We called him Two Gun Al. And he carried two guns on him. The reason he carried the 2 guns because he had more gold on him than Mr. T did before Mr. T. I worked with all these guys for about 3 or 4 months, and then Sonny goes, all right, now you're gonna run with me. So I'm doing collections with him. So Ira had a route and Sonny had a route. So they divided the accounts up. And most of the accounts Ira had were his or his father-in-law's. That's who they bought the business from. Because like being hired there, you just couldn't buy in, be an outsider. You could be the feds or the IRS. You can't sell to an outsider. So, but the father-in-law didn't want to sell to Ira unless he had the money. So he knew Sonny had money. So hence, that's how Sonny got involved. And then later on, I found out, through just running with Sonny. Sonny goes, Ira's the boss. He's a CEO, president, vice president. He's like, I'm the treasurer. But really, I run the show. And I'm thinking, okay, whatever. I didn't argue with him. I said, whatever, And he said, that's on purpose. Because if the door's ever kicked in, and anybody ever gets arrested or taken to jail, it's the president of the company. It's not the treasurer. So we're running the routes, and he's showing me how some of the collections work. Like some accounts we had, most all the accounts we had contracts with. And some contracts were like contracts where we loan accounts money. A guy will come off the street. I want to buy XYZ bar. The bank's not loaning the money. What is the guy want down? $25,000 down. So we check the place out, and if he thinks he can make $1,000, $1,500 a week RN in the machines, they'll do the deal. So they do the deal. We'll loan them $25,000. They're locked into a 5-year contract. So if we're making $1,500 a week, we'll take $500 or $750 a week off their end towards their note. So the note gets back paid pretty quick within a year. So we got 4 years of free ride. And then we had accounts where they were gift accounts. We're making so much money, you don't want to lose them. You don't want anybody else to get them. So there's one account he was making between $5,000 and $10,000 a week. They're in. It's a lot of freaking money, $5,000 to $10,000 a week. So that was a gift account, and that was like the guy had something going on, and he was making good money. But some of these guys, they spend it as fast as they make it, and he needed $50,000. So Sonny goes, "We'll give you $50,000 if you sign another 5-year contract with us." So the guy's thinking like, you needed the money real fast. It's going to take him a while to save that. So he does the deal. So we're making $5,000 to $10,000 a week. If we take a third or half back at the note, we get our money back in a short period of time, and then he's locked in for 5 more years. So that's how this worked. Every bar had a different deal, so you had to know who to deal with, who you settled with, and what the deal was. When we usually wrapped up certain days, we went to a certain place to eat, the Belloc Diner, and one day we rolled. This is our favorite spot. It was called Palano's sub shop on Harford Road. Johnny Palano's was known for subs. I mean, he had like the best subs in town. John Palano didn't want that. Johnny Palano bought the place to launder money through because he was a big bookmaker. He didn't take any bet less than $500 a game. And most guys made multiple bets, including Sonny. Sonny was a big gambler. And he said Johnny's a guy you don't stiff because he's got backing from Jersey. Once a month you see a black sedan pull up, Jersey tags, they do their deal, whatever it was. Johnny didn't talk about it, but people knew he had weight behind him. We roll in there and Sonny says, oh shit, he gives me $20 and he goes, tell him Sonny's regular and whatever you want on me. I said, okay. So I go up there and this guy's, waiting on him. He says, oh, he's Sonny. And then I tell him what I want. And it seemed a little different, which I didn't care. People are different. So I take the food back to the table and Sonny goes, did he ask you out? I'm like, what? He goes, he used a pejorative. And I said, I don't care. As long as you don't mess with me, I don't give a shit. He goes, I can't stand you use a pejorative again. And I'm like, that's kind of blew it off. And he had said, John, he said the irony is, he goes, John even said it. When John bought the place, it was to launder money, from his gambling, from his bookmaking. Because it only had 6 little tables that sat like 2 or 3 people. It was tiny. But his son was such a good cook that these fuckers lined up out the door at lunchtime. I mean, they were lined up out around the block. And he won all kinds of awards. And he's like, he didn't really want the attention, but his son was that good of a cook. And, John would come over, and every time we would see John, it was hilarious, looked like a guy out of Sopranos Central Casting. I mean, he worked in the sub shop, made pizza sauces all day, silk shirt, slacks, gold, rings, jewelry. His apron was always white, though. So, only man, I owned a bar for years, my apron was always dirty because I was always cooking. He never was dirty because his business was, he was on the phone, meeting people out back, collecting money, doing deals. That was his main source, bookmaking. We started talking about, he's talking to me about other aspects of the business as far as, we went through the collections, every account was different. And then, saying, Phil was a big part of it. He would get, we had contacts in all parts of the government through him. So, he goes, we keep that fat fuck close. So I'm thinking like, I thought these guys were tight. And I'm just thinking, okay, he kind of blew it off, But, within an hour, he called somebody a pejorative and he calls Phil, who we need, a fat fuck. So I just kind of remembered these things. And this was early on. This was in the first 4 or 5 months. And then I said to him, look, you're paying me a lot of money. I said, I don't feel like I'm doing enough or doing, I'm just riding around learning the trade. He said, trust me, brother, you're going to earn your money. So he goes, you're going to be riding. He goes, next you're going to be riding with Rob. And Rob was the other part-time mechanic, but he basically moved equipment around. He was a big black fella. And I remember one day he pulled up to the shop and he had a Buick. I think it was a Riviera. He pulled up and the car was tilted to one side. And I'm thinking, man, he's got bad shocks or struts or something on that side. But he got out. He had to like crawl. He had to pull himself to get free from that car. And when he got out, the car came back up and sat straight. That's how big of a man he was. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this guy's. And Sonny's telling me, when I work with him, you move his black ass. You make him move. I'm thinking like, I don't think anybody's making this guy move fast. I mean, he's about 6'4", 400 pounds. So we ran around, moving equipment around and switching things out with Rob. And Rob kept asking me questions. Like everybody I worked with was always asking me questions like, am I getting fired? What's going on? Eventually, when they found out I was marrying his sister-in-law, like, oh, you're your family. You're going to be my boss, I said, whatever to keep the guys calm, till whatever transition was going to happen. So me and Rob are at the shop early. We have to move some equipment around, and we're there at 7 a.m., which is early. We're headed we're headed down the road, down Reisterstown Road, and Janice comes on the radio and says, Rob, where you at? And he says, we're Reisterstown Road, So he goes, we got hit. And I'm looking at Rob like, we got hit. He's like, go ahead. She goes, Thunderbird Lounge, the police are there. You got 15 minutes to get down here or they're smashing the machines up. So I never saw Rob move so fast. He put that truck in gear and we're headed down there. And I hear Sonny over the radio saying, Rob, brief Paul on what's going on and what to say. And Rob goes, don't say shit. If you got to say something, you just move equipment around. You don't know about payouts. You don't know about money. You don't know about nothing. So we get down there. We pull up. There's police cars unmarked. It looks like some unmarked. They're all out there. A couple guys are standing outside. They see us pull up. Like, you with the vending company? Like, yeah, stupid. Yeah, we're with the fucking vending company. We're in a fucking Bill's amusement truck. I'm thinking that. We didn't say that. So we pull the door open, and me and Rob looked at each other and looked inside, and I think in unison we both said, what the fuck is going on in here? We couldn't believe it.